It's the 4th day of December, the last day of last month of 2022. It's pretty amazing. How fast this year has gone. And I'm Dana Durnford. I'm also known as the Gamma Goat. And you can call in at 709-589-4406. 709-589-4406. Hope everybody's doing reasonably well. We got a poll for everybody tonight. Does Japan growing food for sale in a nuclear wasteland that's 2 kilometers from multiple nuclear meltdowns and fuel pools meltdowns prove that nuclear is actually evil? Well, if it doesn't, what actually does, I wonder? I know, you're going to say, Dana, have you photoshopped it? There's no way they're growing food 2 kilometers away from multiple nuclear meltdowns. I'm with you, but unfortunately, regretfully, where do you even start with a story like this? Well, you start by saying that there's positively no International Atomic Energy Agency, that's for sure. At least they're not regulatory agencies. Where did all the media, how come it didn't report on that, I wonder? Tokyo may have been contaminated when radioactive plume fell to the ground after reactor 2 core was exposed. Not melted down, but exposed. This is some Japan professor or something like this. Now, right alongside of reactor 2 was reactor 3 and reactor 4, and the reactor cores at the top of the buildings that don't exist. But they didn't do it. No. Reactor 2, Dana. So they should have evacuated, obviously, Tokyo. Experts are assuming reactor 2 would crack the containment vessel that allowed releases directly from the melted nuclear core, not melted melted nuclear core. It's very rare for them to say the reactor core and melted in the same sentence. And the radioactive plume was blown south. Again, the reactors are at the top of the buildings, right alongside of reactor 2, which looks like that, was reactor 3. Oh, and it had who knows how many reactor cores and fuel pools because they don't have a repository, so that's where they keep them for decades. And that reactor 2 did blow up, for sure, right? The spent fuel pool burnt continuously for days, and there was huge releases. But not like reactor 3, which was a mixed oxide fuel. Government simulation shows radioactive plume of krypton-85, which decays to plutonium or neptunium, I can't remember. Over Tokyo, March the 15th. March the 15th. I don't know. I'm a bit confused. Hang on. That's what it is. Because nuclear is kind of complicated. Oh, God. The problem with I'm having a few problems getting used to the new system. Don't matter, Krypton. Krypton, where are you to, baby? I'll bring it up for you so you can... On the bigger screen, maybe I can spot it. Krypton. Oh, it's up higher, I think. Not that way. Krypton, zirconium, no, Krypton, there it is. What the hell was it again? Krypton 85? Yeah, Krypton 85. Will be that fella right there. Oh, that decays into rubidium. Oh, I'm thinking about zirconium. Or curium, I can't even remember anymore. Yeah, that's rubidium. That's the decay chain before it finally goes kaput and becomes man-made radioactive lead, right? It's got a half-life of 10 years, which means it's 100 years before it disappears into radio. Well, it could be 20 half-lives. They're not exactly sure. They don't have the history to quantify it, right? When the MOX fuel exploded. So how come they didn't evacuate Tokyo when that exploded? And this is the plume, by the way, covers the entire planet in 19 days. Not just Tokyo. And the farmers harvesting within 2 kilometers of the ongoing meltdown. We'll get to that right away. Officials amid a deadly Fukushima meltdown cover-up. They lied about it. People are like, there's a cover-up. It's a grave issue. It's an unprecedented nuclear disaster, and it's as bad as it gets, and it's an unpardonable breach of the trust. And people are like, so they got to roll with people like Arnie.
Now, the division I ran built nuclear fuel racks for boiling water reactors exactly like Fukushima.
And he doesn't know that the building looks like this and not like that. Dementia? Who knows?
And Unit 4.
That's his wife. She was a spokesperson for the nuclear industry for decades. One of the top spokesperson. They make a pretty evil team, I would say.
It has always been my biggest concern.
So why are you pretending it looks like that instead of like that? Because that's like, if you go out looking at this subject, this is who you're going to.
If you watched our website, on the very first week of the accident, I was saying that if Unit 4 were to catch fire, you'd have to evacuate Tokyo.
Does that qualify as a fire, I wonder?
Now, the division I ran.
Hopefully the next time he's at a fuel pool, someone shoves him in there. But hey, that's 4 angles of reactor 4. I'm sorry, 4 sides of reactor 4. And 1 angle. And reactor cores were stored in the pools at the top of the building. The reactor core was almost at the top of the building. It had to be where the pool basically is so they can transfer it into the pool and keep it underwater. But the damage at Unit 2 is what prompted TEPCO to discuss evacuating the workers, because it burned continuously for several days, unlike Reactor 3 and 4, which burnt continuously for several weeks and is hemorrhaging radiation, for 12 years. We're almost there. Hang on. It gets worse. The IAEA today admitted there's no such thing as a safe level of radiation. So why are you growing food alongside? There's nothing funny about it. It's just better than screaming. Why are you growing food right alongside of ongoing multiple reactor cores and fuel pools that have melted down and blew up and caught fire and blew up? So the IAEA says their allowable radiation standards, or safe standards, are based on benefit, not safety, which means they're based on just natural stuff that has nothing to do with nuclear power plants. Harmless, stupid, everyday back stuff, instead of man-made stuff. So it's time to deep six them. It's time to deep six them. Every organism in Fukushima's prefecture, it's a huge prefecture, by the way, is contaminated with radiation. 1.4 million becquerels a kilogram in the worm's feces, which is all they do is eat and poop, right? 60 kilometers from the meltdown. 60 kilometers from the meltdown. So, growing food in Futaba, 2 kilometers away from multiple nuclear meltdowns. I showed you just 2 of them, right? Out of 4, because number 4 actually melted down too. So then, the definition of stupid is knowing the truth, seeing the truth, but still believing the lie. And there's a lot of people like that, right? Well, they know the difference, but their job is to regurgitate a lie. So the first crop since the nuclear accident shipped from Futaba, not from everywhere else within a few miles, but Futaba has been abandoned for a very long time. Just some. So 50 becquerels a kilogram in humans lead to irreversible lesions in your vital organs. The New Scientist produced a paper and said, nuclear crisis, how safe is Japan's food and water? On the 26th of March, 15 days after the tsunami, and less than 2 weeks after multiple reactors melted down. And New Scientists, what they had done after Fukushima to protect the nuclear industry has to be criminal. So this picture's from 2016. So they're harvesting food right alongside of 1-ton bags of radiation without no paper suits on. That's probably illegal. Not that the paper suit's going to protect you. And it's going to gather up any radiation on top of that, and TEPCO claims they burn 7,000 of them every single day. Well, we got a poll. Does growing food for sale in a nuclear wasteland 2 kilometers away from nuclear meltdowns prove that nuclear is crazy? I think so. So, I'm just trying to give you context before I cover the story, because the story's... I'm like... And they posted the story right within 15 minutes of me ending my last show on last week, which was Thursday night. So they banned the food in 14 prefectures for 10 years in 55 countries. And the industry put people in key positions in the EU and the United States, and they just shook a few hands and lifted it in September last year. Not Canada, of course. They lifted it after 93 days because they had to prove that they're evil, and they did. Now everybody in Canada is sick. But that picture shouldn't exist. Like, you got a nuclear meltdown, you got 1,000 bags of radiation, somebody's harvesting food right alongside of it. Without the picture, you probably couldn't even convince me, you know. I've probably seen it all or heard it all over time. This one takes the cake. First crop since nuclear accident to ship from the evacuated town in Fukushima. Now, it's an evacuated town where the growing of food is 2 kilometers away from ongoing multiple nuclear reactor meltdowns and fuel pools, which had decades of reactor cores melt down. They also picked up 30 million 1-ton bags across that part of the region, Fukushima and a few other surrounding prefectures, was only on 3% of the land where they wanted to grow food and make people move back into it to pretend that the nuclear industry had some kind of redeeming qualities. And just standing there and taking the picture is proof that there's a lot of stupid people on the planet. Or should I say gullible? Okay, same thing. You're actually stupid. If you go there and you see all these 1-ton bags of radiation and you get that close and you don't get out of dodge, you meet the definition of stupid. That's the definition of idiots. You're literally going to get poisoned. You're going to get sick for the rest of your life from it. And it could take, depending on what you've done, it could take a few years for it to start to manifest. There's 1,800 illnesses. A farmer in the town that hosts the actual damage, which had fuel rods land in it from the detonations, that host damage, and I showed you the pictures, they're completely destroyed. Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. Now, it picked up 30 million 1-ton bags of radiation. So there's a lot of really good slaves on the planet, obviously. I must obey. Schools are not teaching children to become important human beings, but drugged up little obedient slaves. The farmer says he soon starts shipping broccoli after the crops undergo screening for radioactive substances. You should be getting screening for radioactive substances and be arrested for attempted murder. This will be the first shipment of agricultural products from Futaba itself, which is surrounded by that kind of stuff. 1-ton bags of radiation. And stuff like that, of course. There was 150,000 sites like that, by the way, where this is only 3% of the land in Fukushima Prefecture where they actually picked up topsoil and put it in 1-ton bags. Shipments of farm products from Futaba stopped when the town's residents ran away in terror and horror after being contaminated. They're growing rice there. You can see it clearly. They just left the bags where they were and just started to grow food. Osuma had been growing broccoli in the district where the evacuation orders were lifted in August. The district was decontaminated ahead of other areas. Well, actually, no. That's why it's evacuated. It's going to be completely covered even if you did the very next day, so what's the point? You have multiple ongoing nuclear meltdowns and fuel pools that melted down right alongside of it that are hemorrhaging absurd amount of radiation, a catastrophic amount constantly into the air and the sea. And when you drive 60 miles away, this is what it looks like in every direction. Including, this is out of the mainstream media, worried that people were going to stigmatize the farmers and they're growing food on one side and they got 1-ton bags on the other side. Like, the significance of it is just, it must be photoshopped. That can't be real. Nobody would do that. There's no regulatory agency would allow it to happen. Well, you're wrong. Broccoli from the district was cleared for shipment after no radioactive substances exceeding the government's safety standards of 100 becquerels a kilogram were detected in the test harvesting. Same as that. These are blatant lies, obviously, but this is the story. Kohada says he planned to harvest vegetables by the end of December, and he'll then be tested for radioactive substances by the Kuki Prefecture and sent to the local agricultural cooperative. It was banned in 50. Did I mention food was banned in 14 prefectures, not just Fukushima, by 55 countries? So it's pretty certain that growing food right alongside a multiple nuclear reactor meltdown is a terrible idea. He chose the broccoli because it grows easily in the thin soil, and much of the soil near the ground surface was removed in so-called decontamination work. Which you're in a no-go zone. Who done the decontamination in there? Would have got sick and probably died by now. The farmer said he drove every week from the nuclear wasteland known as Iwaki City, which is a nuclear wasteland, where he had evacuated to tend to his crops. So every day he drives from a nuclear wasteland to within 2 kilometers of the ongoing nuclear meltdowns. To tend to his farm, and then he goes back home. You can't make this up, if you're pre-Fukushima. He drove every week from Iwaki City, where he evacuated to tend to his crops. See, you got to be absurdly stupid to do what he's doing, to be that gullible to do something like that. I don't know how he's capable of driving a piece of equipment and to be so complacent as not to understand he's endangering. Inhaling just one hot particle can cause a cancer, or 1,800 illnesses and diseases, and autoimmune deficiencies and injuries. He said he's happy the shipments will resume, and he'll do his best to continue production as a first step towards the recovery of agricultural in Futaba, a nuclear wasteland. What was interesting, Japan had set a lot of precedents. One was they took the radioactive material, grind it up, and burnt it all over the country, but particularly around Fukushima. You can see more pollution added to the... And so I'm worried about all the people that are going to eat it and get sick and die. There's a curse to cure it. I don't know what to make of it. Do you know what to make of it? I don't know what to make of it. Am I supposed to make anything out of it? I don't know. So that's crimes against humanity when you're burning it in incinerators, radioactive material all over the country. Because nuclear radiation is the most carcinogenic thing that exists. So 4 kilometers from the plant, and they're growing food 2 kilometers, was 166,000 becquerels per kilogram or per square meter of radioactive iodine, cesium, was at 21 million. And then strontium would have been 100 times that. 4 kilometers from the plant, but they're growing food 2 kilometers from the plant, and they're not living there. Authorities hid the radioactive plume forecast to avoid evacuation. Did you pay him to do that, I wonder? Government model shows Fukushima radioactive gas near Tokyo skyrocketed 10 billion times the normal level. That's 200 plus kilometers away. So kind of growing food right alongside the reactors that are still melting down. Surely that's a crime. But it's not illegal to poison you with radiation, unfortunately. Because otherwise they can't murder you with radiation in the hospitals, see? My apologies, a bit thirsty. It's thirsty work. It's very, very, very thirsty work. Just hang on. Mitchell. Good day, sir. You're loud and clear, hopefully.
So too.
Hi there. How are you, sir?
I'm well, sir. How are you?
Go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, my name's Mike Shell,
Hi, Mike. Yeah. Thank you.
and a couple of things I want to mention. One was earlier you said that you were not allowed to do a radio show. I want to ask you about that because this kind of sounds like a radio show.
That
I
was
mean, what we're doing right now.
that was me joking. Well, I can't do a radio show because I can't provide the documentation.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, that was just me joking. Sorry about that.
And the other thing was about this, one of the ones in the chat section was you caught her attacking you?
Yeah, there was 5 of them actually. I'm not covering that right now though. It's too much drama. Listen, it's been going on for 11 years straight.
Really love to
there's thousands.
just even a couple of screen captures. Really love to see just even a couple tonight.
There's thousands.
If you have,
I have them, of course I do. Thousands of people have attacked me. I don't like giving people a platform for that stuff, right?
well, we want to support you and just chat and say, oh my God, I can't believe how bad that was. I've been looking forward to this all weekend.
I'm sorry. Well, I was upset when I said it, and it's a mistake for me to go down that road because we're detracting from what's happening. Right? What's more important? My people calling me names and insulting me and attacking me, or the facts and the documentation that the world is sleepwalking into, Listen, I got a thick skin, and sometimes it gets under my skin, right? And I don't know how long you've been around, but you know, if you've been around at all, you know that I'm an honest person, and that I don't do random things. Everything is laid out and to tell this story, right? And so, over the years, I've had this conversation a lot of times, right? And I don't like mentioning the people's names. I don't like giving them a platform. I don't see the reason for it. I don't see what I'm going to gain by doing it. And sometimes when people piss me off, I'll lash out at them, and I always regret doing that. It's better just to get rid of them and move on like I normally do. And there's been thousands of people attack me, and which detracts, right, from trying to tell us of extraordinary important story that I work all day at. And I think that's what they're up to anyway, right, is to throw me off the story and get into drama instead of facts, right? This is why we don't have a radio show, is because you can't provide the documentation, which is more important than my thick skin, so to speak, Michael.
All right. So I have 2 more questions. One is Sheila back in chat?
Again, right, you're going down that same path with me? I don't understand.
I'm just wondering, because last time you said, please don't call back to the show and please don't show up in chat again.
I say that a lot. Over the years, I've said that hundreds and hundreds of times. You gotta know.
If we see her in chat, we can yak at her.
You won't see her in chat, I don't think, or him,
Right.
or whoever it is,
That's great news.
or whoever it is.
I always wondered about her, and some of her chat comments. I always thought, my suspicion was around. And so also my second question was, or actually my second comment was, I really appreciate that you're talking about the Zaporizhzhia plant, because there's only like, you can count on your shorthand how many on the internet are actually talking about it in an honest way.
Yeah, I know, I hear you. Well, let me see if I can find a screen capture, seeing as we're talking about it. I just don't encourage people to give them a platform, because it's an insult to me when I hear the comments, right?
Right.
It's not fair to me. But in this case, let's just do it, because why not? I'll let you go.
Well, I should hang up because
Yep.
while I'm talking on the phone, I can't see you on my phone.
Okay, yeah. No worries. Take care, Paul. That's well, that's what I mean. I don't like the drama. And when it happens, but I don't move on, right? Hang on here. La 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 la. Just hang on, I'll get it. I don't know. Here we go. Let me see what we got here. You can see this. I don't mind. He wanted her to be a moderator. He's a troll, Paul Mobley, right? He's with the industry. He claims reactor 3 and 4 fuel pools are intact. He said, I doubt if he'll get it a hand unless Dana shows up or something. Hang on here. Just give me a second. Because there was a lot of comments going on that night. Let me see what we got here. That's probably the wrong folder. There's a lot of comments were made. Yeah, there's a lot. I didn't set it up. There's another one. There's quite a few of them. I ain't sticking up for Dana, but did Kevin ever go to jail for his words, or did Dana lie about that? Paul Mobley says, as far as I can tell, Dana's a lawyer. Really? Hang on, though. I got some good stuff here, maybe. It's just, you got to realize I got a lot there. This is why. Now, so I might as well give up the show after this because we're off track altogether. This is not. They're growing food in a nuclear wasteland. People are worried about drama. Oh, obsolete optics was there too. For all we know, Dana could have deleted his own channel and just said YouTube deleted it, with no notice or prior warning. And that I would talk to creators who have their channels removed from YouTube to see if YouTube emailed them about it or just straight up deleted the channel. Which is like, that's a really strange thing to say, isn't it? That's obsolete optics claim, and I probably deleted my own channel with 24,200 subscribers. Why would I do it though? What was to be gained by doing that? This is why I didn't want to cover it, because there was 5 people in the chat room that, counting Mobley, that were attacking me, and I don't want to put him on a pedestal because he's a prolific lawyer. But anyway, there was enough lies and attacks on me that I can't trust somebody. And when I feel I can't trust somebody, I don't want them around me. Because it causes... First off, I'm not a lawyer. And I find that stuff really hurtful just to read it again. And these people hung out in my comment section for a long time and made friends with everybody there. In fact... Obsolete Optics even pestered people in the comment section to bug me to let them back in the comment section after blocking them for trolling me before. And I did, and here he is again, right, attacking me, claiming that I probably deleted him. Why would he say something like that? So it's like, what's going on, right, is this is divide and conquer. So they've been doing this for a very long time to me, right? And so the idea is to divide, make you doubt, right? And get you caught up in fluff instead of worrying about what's actually killing you and your loved ones and your friends and your families. I got so many of them I can't actually... I had no intentions of doing that tonight, so I apologize. And it's pointless when I do that because I've been attacked thousands and thousands of times over the years, right? Originally, I was getting 3,000 or 4,000 or 5,000 comments on each show. And there was endless attacks. And so all you can do is just block it and move on. And over the years, there was another one, Starlight, was in our comment section for 2 years, right? And we caught him out there viciously attacking me on multiple channels, making fun of me and disparaging me. I work like a dog every day to try to make the world a better place. And I don't give a shit about the drama. The drama means nothing to me. We can barely fund this operation, for fuck's sakes. Officials sharply raised, and there's no opposition to pick up if I can't keep going, right? To your right, officials sharply raised radiation levels for residents to get iodine pills after the meltdown, 75 times higher than the World Health Organization, which is the United Nations, and scumbags on top of that, recommended for children. And to your left was an academic study why radiation fears are often exaggerated. Well, like when you pick up 60 million one-ton bags of radiation, it's not exaggerated. At the Fukushima nuclear meltdown, a help wanted ad seeks employees able to carry out a conversation. Plutonium was detected all over a village 25 miles from the planet, 25 miles away from the planet, and they're growing food 2 miles away in a nuclear wasteland, surrounded by a nuclear wasteland. Even the despicable Australians said a catastrophic radiation contamination at the rice fields 60 kilometers from Fukushima Daiichi, where there's at least no crops for 300 years, but they're grown at 2 kilometers away from the ongoing multiple nuclear meltdowns. If that doesn't worry you, then there's a free Nobel Peace Prize with an order of shrimp taco at that place right there. You can get yourself your very own Nobel Prize. It's a pretty good deal. Shocking that the official made it mandatory to use Fukushima rice in school lunches. School lunches. And so, like, my other site had 24,200 subscribers that Obsolete Optics was saying I'd probably delete it myself. And I used to hold a fundraiser. No matter what we needed, we would raise it in about 2 hours. Now I can't raise anything. So what was the purpose of me deleting my own channel? How did that benefit me? Why would someone say something like that? That's not the only disparaging thing he said, but it's these kind of statements are really revealing, see? 6 in 10 Fukushima children tested have diabetes. And the head of the Tokyo area medical clinic says we're expecting diabetes in children from Fukushima radiation. We are expecting diabetes in Fukushima children from the radiation. Doesn't this matter? Do you think they got all the radiation in the bags? The bags were only meant to last a couple of years on top of that. They only picked up 3% of the land. Do you think the radiation avoided the forest and your ponds and everything else? And I know the answer, and you know the answer. I'm just saying to those... I'll show you the Francis model of the radioactive fall. So you should have done the same thing in every city in the northern hemisphere, because this is, and Europe, this is, and the worldwide, this is a 16-day model of radioactive fallout. It covers the planet. This is just a fraction. This is not the actual meltdown inventories. This was venting, which couldn't have been done because the tsunami ran through the site. And so this model means we're supposed to pick up millions and millions of one-ton bags in every community. Only 10% of the school lunches in Fukushima tested for radiation. The official didn't even know the testing equipment was available. 70% of the children tested in Kanto, a region that included Tokyo, have radioactive cesium in their urine. Previous cesium limits in rice was 0.1 becquerel a kilogram. Now it's 1,000 times higher. Japanese mayor said students are gaining knowledge by eating contaminated food from the nuclear wasteland. People like that actually exist. It's shocking that people like that actually exist in real life. It's shocking that there's a single spot like this, let alone 150,000 of them originally in 2014, 2015. 180,000 students may have eaten radioactive beef of 13,000 becquerels a kilogram served for lunch in Miyagi. Well, it wouldn't have been just the beef that was contaminated on top of that. So go down there and mark on each of these bags Dana is wrong. Don't be a chicken, the mayor tells the parents who are concerned their children are eating radioactive lunches. And so go down and mark on all these bags that Dana's an idiot. Dana knows nothing about radiation. Dangerous high levels of radiation detected in rice from Date, which is 60 kilometers away, but people are growing food now 2 kilometers away from ongoing multiple nuclear meltdowns in an area that is We don't have anything to compare it to. We don't have anything that looks like that anywhere else on the planet. We don't have a nuclear planet on the planet where multiple reactors and 8 fuel pools melted down at the same time. We don't have anything to compare it to. So the only thing you can do is take the weight of each reactor core in the reactors and then the weight of multiple reactor cores in each of the 8 fuel pools. And we're talking about pure uranium, pure plutonium's gone through a chain reaction. The reason they're picking it up is because the atoms are 2 billion times more toxic than industrial poison. Hopefully that means something to somebody. So whoever stood there, you can't avoid breathing and consuming and ingesting and having any exposed skin saturated with isotopes. That's an absurd picture. This kind of picture shouldn't exist. He should be in even if he was there, should be in a fully wrapped suit with a Scotty backpack with his own air supply. There's zero possibility he can survive for very long after that. There's zero possibility he's not going to have all kinds of diseases right away because his immune system is compromised, so he's more susceptible to pathogens and viruses that don't exist. Pathogens and viruses that were normally harmless before, right? Because your immune system is completely compromised because you're producing so much white blood cells. Deteriorating plant threatens mass extinction around the world, and some useful idiot has grown food there. Now, he's not living there. He drives in each day from another nuclear wasteland known as Iwaki. It's just the media, you would expect the media to say, well, probably shouldn't be doing it, right? It's place still, a bit of emissions coming or something, right? No. And instead he put him on a pedestal and supported him. Shocking that the Japanese nuclear emergency director says local residents have no right to avoid radiation exposure. The nuclear emergency director says the victims have no right to avoid the radiation exposure. As other people do, people in Fukushima have the right to avoid the radiation exposure and live a healthy life too, don't you think so? The Nuclear Safety Commission of Japan's representative, when pushed to go beyond his canned, non-answer deadpans, I don't know if they have that right. The crowd reacts as you would expect when told their nuclear threat and welfare isn't a concern. And it isn't. Like, they're assembling a greenhouse where there's many 1-ton bags of radiation. So obviously they intend to grow food in this area. So if the fact that they're picking up 1-ton bags should exclude growing food there for a couple of million years anyway, give or take 10 or 20. So 80% of the residents tested of radioactive iodines in the thyroids up to 87 millisieverts. Some residents face potential health risk. Potential at 87,000 microsieverts. Which is just... These are absurd numbers you're talking about. And it can't be just radioactive iodine. It doesn't work that way. So you're talking about 1,000 other fission products would have been saturating the thyroid glands and sequestering the muscles, the organs, and the bones. These are catastrophic numbers. There's zero possibility that they can get sick and have heart attacks, a percentage of them right away. The children would have all developed diabetes right away. Like anybody that, if you know just a little bit about it, then you can appreciate how absurd it is that something like that exists. These are 1-ton bags of radiation. The rain with 20 million particles of radioactive iodine, 131 fell per liter of rainfall on the U.S. during post-Fukushima peak. 100 becquerels a kilogram of cesium is nuclear waste, and after 100 becquerels a kilogram of cesium is safe to eat. So before Fukushima, 100 becquerels a kilogram of cesium is nuclear waste. And it's not just going to be cesium. It's going to be every isotope you can imagine that are man-made. And so when they say cesium, which I got thousands and thousands of studies that only acknowledge cesium, but in the real world, right, cesium is a terrible isotope, by the way, but it's a tracer for them. They'll do a mathematical equation, extrapolate, the uranium, plutonium, and their daughters, and americium, neptunium, and xenon, and krypton, and curium, which is a big byproduct of the radiated fuel rod. So 220 million atoms per liter, which means all the insects and birds and animals and everything's thyroid glands would have been saturated. Would have been completely saturated with all the fission products, which means, first off, the insects, the birds, the mammals, the animals are going to be producing radioactive hormones. They're going to sequester, and the hormones function, all the function of your bodies. It's frightening. That one and this one. So you can extrapolate an absurd numbers from those two. So strange, nuclear waste being processed during an explosion in France had a radioactivity of 17 becquerels a kilogram, 30 times less contaminated than what Japan considers safe to eat, which is 100 becquerels a kilogram, right? So France was packaging 17 becquerels a kilogram to go into storage forever and ever. So Japan is doing the worst thing possible, where they decided to cover it up and poison everybody worldwide. So again, go down and mark on all of these bags that Dana is wrong. How wrong I must be. Where am I to here? A U.S. Navy sailor, digital watches stopped working, went offshore Fukushima after 3/11. We were laughing at first, but then Fukushima newspaper editor, we don't report on the health risk from radiation, so what's the point of existing? So why grow food in a nuclear wasteland? Right, you can't beat her, but you got a farm where you go. You can't live there, but you got a farm where you go there and you tend to your farm, and then eventually you're going to sell it. Because inhaling just one, or consuming, or drinking, or breathing just one everything from a nuclear meltdown is a radioactive hot particle causing cancer. Fukushima exposed children and workers. Okay, for now, new scientists. And so when you see the new scientists, I want to do this, stark contrast of reality. When I got these two put together for that reason, was here's academic studies claiming everything is fine, but here's the reality. The new scientist claims Fukushima radiation no threat to the health. That was 7 days after tsunami, 4 days after reactor 3 blew up. Senior scientists, irreversible heart damage for children with 50 becquerels a kilogram of just gammas. Right? So for new scientists to put out a study like that, which are, new scientists are very popular, but they're only popular because they're so evil, right? New scientists in 2015, don't let the fear win. And that was Geraldine Thomas. Radiation in small doses could actually be disproportionately worse Jerry Thomas is disgusting, folks. We've covered her hundreds and hundreds of times over the years. So if one hot particle can cause a cancer, working there is guaranteed up to 1,800 other illnesses, right? Before Fukushima, 100 becquerels a kilogram of cesium is nuclear waste. After 100 becquerels a kilogram of cesium is safe to eat. So in Tokyo, it was 18 million becquerels a square meter, which is 276,000 becquerels a kilogram. So obviously Tokyo is not safe. After a rainfall in Tokyo, they've seen numbers of 29 million becquerels a square meter in the soil. And again, irreversible heart damage for children with 50 becquerels a kilogram. Cesium levels spiking with unusual high amounts of fallout in Futaba, Tokyo, up to 300,000 becquerels a square meter, home to the world's largest drinking water supply. A reservoir of its kind built to supply Tokyo, 36 million people. So every time it rains, this wasn't just a single plume, this was a continuous, constant, sustained plume. And to visualize it, you want to think of a snowstorm that covers the planet without the snow ever melting. Just every day it snows forever and ever and ever. And so radiation visually kind of looks like that, but you can't see it or smell it or taste it or hear it or feel it or touch it or whatever. But if you consume it and you can't avoid it, you're going to get sick. And there's up to 1,800 illnesses and diseases and autoimmune deficiencies and injuries. So clear that low-level contamination is more dangerous than a single dose. So there's an absurd amount of evidence, as I'm showing you, that they know this is a terrible idea, to grow food 2 kilometers away from ongoing multiple nuclear meltdowns and spent fuel pools that have melted down. Japan Prime Minister studies setting up an alternative capital away from Tokyo. Away from Tokyo. That was reported on over many months, by the way. Radioactive dust or fog at 4,000 becquerels a kilogram of just gamma never disappears. So growing food right alongside the actual ongoing multiple nuclear meltdowns that have, some of them gone China syndrome, so the earth has split and there's geysers of radioactive steam hemorrhaging out of them where they have to abandon the site for many weeks at a time. And we show that documentation many times. Japan unveiled plans to develop a massive government backup city. Again, right? So why are you growing food right alongside a nuclear meltdown when it's radioactive so far away? In Chiba, which is 20 kilometers away from Tokyo, was 400,000 times xenon-133. 400,000 times xenon-133. Xenon. That's Krypton data. Here's xenon. Most people are just going like, data's right there. Well, I'm having a little problem with my Zoom, so I'll get. So it has a 5.24 day. 5.2, or yeah, 5.5 has a 5-day half-life. But then it decays into, I don't know, Dana, what does it decay into? It decays into 133 cesium. Bear with me. And so 133 cesium, what's the half-life on that? That's stable. Technetium 85 is not. Because the percentage of it goes to cesium, percentage of it goes to, it's a 5, I don't know, I can't remember. But that's the decay chain you're looking at. Eventually 85 zirconium even. Wow. 85 barium, 85 strontium. Wow. Nasty isotope, right? Let me go back up for a second. That's rubidium. Oh, that's the one I opened. It's the wrong one. One more try. Hang on. Xenon 85. I don't remember. 133. Try that again. Yeah, with the 5-day half-life. And so once it decays to a cesium, then it has to go through the other ones, right? One of them, a technetium. No, that was the wrong one. Anyway, let's keep her rolling, I suppose. Rolling, rolling, rolling. I've been at this so long, like telling this story on YouTube and putting this whole operation together each day. And it always surprises me when anybody questions me instead of the documentation. Right? The idea is to have a controversy about me, not about the documentation. Make it about Dana. Low doses of radiation cause heart diseases and strokes, not just cancers. Well, heart problems, liver, lung, respiratory, pituitary, thyroid, adrenaline, Alzheimer's, dementia, autism, diabetes, Down syndrome. So airborne radiation at Fukushima nuke plant still far higher than the government's max. 2018. This story cracks me up. Temporary radioactive soil storage site. It's not a storage site, they just, hang on, they pick the radiation up. A farmer harvesting rice in Katsuru, Fukushima Prefecture, 2016, right alongside the 1-ton bags. But this is where they picked it up, right? And so it's just not a storage, now it's a storage site, but that's where they picked it up. As a temporary storage site for piles of black plastic bags. These are special bags, by the way. By the way, they're only meant to last a couple of years. These plastic bags now hampering the locals from resuming farming, and it has been learned. So who the hell talks like that? Over 90% of the temporary storage sites are on farmland, because that's where they picked up it. There was only 3% of land. Most of it was farmland and communities, see? So the majority of it was farmland, 90%. Local governments are deprived of the very foundation for restoring farming, not because it's dangerous, but because it's in a black plastic bag, right? Do you get how that works? Yeah, you gotta be quite the zombie not to... Another rice paddy in the foreground. Let's go, baby!
Opern Gangnam Style. Gangnam Style.
So what you really want to do is you want to get a big bag of this radioactive food, right? And you go to nuclear scientists, nuclear academics, and you have a screenshot of that, and you put it on the table in front of them, and then you grab him by the back of the head, and you make him eat all the rice until he drops dead. That's the right thing to do. Temporary radioactive soil storage site hinders the Fukushima farms. Try making that up on your own. I dare you. Nuclear radiation is the most carcinogenic thing that exists, right? And so growing food in a nuclear wasteland is just such a terrible idea. Irreversible heart damage for children with 50 becquerels a kilogram. Strontium found in 2,200 locations in Fukushima. Not surprising, it's Yokohama, 250 kilometers away. 11 becquerels a kilogram, you start to see heart problems. 11 becquerels. Remember the numbers I was showing you earlier, 29 million becquerels a square meter and stuff like that? 10 billion becquerels a square meter in Tokyo, remember that? So this is why you see most of the insects disappearing, and birds and animals and mammals too, see? Because this wasn't isolated, unfortunately. And then, so growing food right at ground zero, that's some serious kind of evilness, right? This is Noah's model, the radioactive fallout. So when the model stops, it's based on 40 days. I got double the speed of the model. Not that that even matters. I'm just going to zip right through it, and that's 40 days later. That model is based on venting, not based on actual reactor cores or fuel rods or anything else. Or spent fuel pools. So go marking all of these bags. Dana is wrong, that nuclear is safe, and that nuclear is good, and Dana's bad. Children with over 11 becquerels a kilogram, you start to see heart problems. And so here they are pretending they're checking the victims, and that's not how you do it, right? These people don't even admit it after, they don't even know what they're talking about. So 2 sieverts an hour better radiation. This is just 2 kilometers away from where they're growing food. And they're just talking about beta. What about alphas, neutrons, and gammas, and the X-rays from all of this, see? And then, if that was true, then you can't be there with a paper suit on to survive it. So the tanks are empty, because if you actually fill up the tank, you're talking about 1.4 million becquerels just of beta. And so it'd have to be 1.4 million of gammas, 1.4 million of alphas, 1.4 million of neutrons too, see? Which means you can't build another tank there, and you certainly won't be able to stand up there and survive. The tank's not thick enough to shield you. And so they're just flushing it into the ocean. The tanks were built to manipulate you and deceive you and trick you and take away your ability to have a future. New Scientist, Fukushima media coverage may be harmful. Fox Media, is the iodine-131 killing babies in Philadelphia? The deaths are up 48% since the radiation level spiked in the tap water, which means your piping now is radioactive permanently. Lecturer, because all the other isotopes are going to be there. Radioactive Fukushima children given the cancer all clear, as if cancer is the only illness that's going to show up. Again, it's absurdly despicable to write an article about the children to downplay it. It's better not to say nothing, see? But they actually publish an article to downplay the significance and call them radioactive children on top of that and only acknowledge cancer. Lecturer tells parents Tokyo radiation not so serious and to let the children play outside. Just gargle and wash your hands. But radiation doesn't work that way. Once you get it in your body, you only need a single exposure. If you're there each day, so the children, right, in most of that area never went out for the first couple of years, only to school. Fukushima increased risks of cancer, says new scientist, but not by much. Japan author extreme increase in mortality by cardiac diseases. Death rates might give the creeps to some people. In a single month, there was a spike of 12,700 people dying of just heart attacks. These are absurd numbers. Fukushima's going to start burning radioactive waste. They got another incinerator built there now, by the way. 100 becquerels a kilogram. That's a dirty bomb per kilogram. To be incinerated with billions of pounds of debris. The cancer risk lower than feared for the Fukushima locals, says the degenerate academics. So over there, they're claiming they're getting the fuel rods from the Fukushima Plant 4 reactor, but that's 4 reactor. There's no way. And they're pretending they're in reactor 4. Operations commenced this week to remove nuclear fuel rods from a storage pool at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant, some 16 months after the worst nuclear disaster since Chernobyl. Well, this makes Chernobyl look like a paper towel. Chernobyl was brutal, by the way. Risk expert Alison George. Why radiation fears are often exaggerated. That's the 23rd of March, 2011. It's a little over a week after the meltdown started. 8 days after. 75% of Fukushima 300,000 children going to school so contaminated to be radiation control areas in nuclear plants. But here's New Scientist, an academic journal publishing constantly to downplay any significance whatsoever, throwing all the victims, the children in particular, under the bus across the entire country and your countries. That should shock you that there's people like that actually exist or are actual real. That should terrify you that there's a human anywhere on the planet that has those kinds of attributes. Tokyo tea leaves at 2,700 becquerels a kilogram radioactive cesium. Again, you hear the word cesium, which is a gamma, to make sure you don't think about plutonium and uranium and americium and neptunium and strontium and technetium and californium, yum. This is Dr. Jerry Thomas from United Kingdom. This is
so, for example, coming here, I would have got a dose of 0.07 millisieverts on the flight. And I actually went round Fukushima Daiichi on Wednesday, and the dose that I had going around the site, so very close to where the reactors are, it was 0.01 and probably lower, but that's the lowest it could actually read. So I got more of a dose flying here, and we'll get a dose tomorrow when I fly home, than I would have done from being in Fukushima.
And so people like that should be locked up forever. It should be a crime not to arrest her. And now, she's a professor. Oh, and she radiates children with radioactive injections and proton beams and everything else that are dying from cancer. That's execution, right? Imagine how actually evil she really is in real life. Right, the persona of a wolf in a sheep's clothing. Japan's safety standards and radiation levels for children are unconscionable. It's unconscionable. The scumbags to your left, new scientists, never cease to amaze me, eh? Radioactive rain caused 130 schools in Korea to close, but the farmers are growing food 2 kilometers away from it, surrounded by millions of 1-ton bags of radiation. 10 days after the explosions, new scientists asked, how safe is the Japanese food? Well, no. Well, the question is it safe to go back into the communities and the supermarkets and the shops and the malls and the schools and the hospitals and banks? No. So how can the food be safe? It's impossible to stop the radioactive groundwater flowing into the Pacific. One of the very, 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 very few times we heard something honest. Bloomberg, everybody's being bitten by invisible snakes that will eventually kill them. Will eventually kill them, everybody, worldwide. The Times, a lethal threat from Fukushima, highly radioactive water flown into the Pacific Ocean. It's a threat to life. And I've done the research expeditions. It's an extinction event. And every day I hope the world will come to its senses and wake up. And every day I realize, well, I guess I'll be back again tomorrow because the world didn't wake up today. I am free no matter what rules surround me. If I find them tolerable, I tolerate them. If I find them obnoxious, I break them. I am free. Because I know that I alone am morally responsible for everything I do. Been there. I agree with you, buddy. Stephen Young donated $50 to Weekend. Thank you, Stephen. You're a good person for doing the extra. You're still a good person regardless, of course. I hope you're doing well, my friend. Albert Richard, Invisible Rabbit. Stephen Young, his centrifugal force. The Iverson effect. Invisible Rabbit, Dana Nasana. Joyful One. Good night, everybody. James Lucet. Hey, buddy. Patrick. Good night, everybody. Have a great night. Great day tomorrow. See everybody tomorrow night. Kevin Blanche. Hi, Kevin. John Shiflett. Gabriel Tree Roof. Let me go back up to the top, see if I can get a few more. Zefram Cochran. Have a great night, folks. I'll bring up the poll in a second. We'll end the poll. Another Gmail. John Curtis. All of you who are sitting back everywhere. Hugs for everybody. Peace Weir. Did I get everybody? Yeah, growing food. We got a poll tonight. Got a poll. Let's bring it up. Does Japan's growing food for sale in a nuclear wasteland 2 kilometers from multiple nuclear fuel pools and reactor core meltdowns prove nuclear is evil? Yeah, that's a great big yes, boy. That was a good poll, thank you. End the poll. And just let me scroll through the comment section for a few more moments, make sure I got as many shout outs as possible. Angel's Place. Looks good. I don't see the pole. Oh, there it is. You. What else? We got a big show for tomorrow night. A huge, absurd amount of news from the weekend. But I felt that I should cover this story in particular tonight all on its own, because they're growing food 2 kilometers from multiple nuclear meltdowns. And the farmer drives every week from Iwaki City, where he evacuated, to tend to his farm in a nuclear wasteland, surrounded by a nuclear wasteland. And so, what's the point of the nuclear industry again? I'm confused. Well, why are they so dark? Why do they hate everything and everybody so much? Why are they willing to sacrifice the entire planet, the health of everybody, for nuclear? How is that gonna pan out, right? So if you and they did, you poison everybody on the planet, all the species, you're exterminating them. So you can have a job to, like, the world, I'm just worried about all the victims, and I'm worried about all the species. And I know that makes me a bad person, but I'm worried about them nevertheless. Maybe because the nuclear industry's not. Are you a bad person like me? Are you worried about all the species and the insects and birds and children and humans and the future generations and the future of the planet and the oceans and the birds and the whales and porpoises and seals? Should we sacrifice all of that for the nuclear industry? Apparently so, according to the nuclear industry. Night, everybody. Have a great night. We'll see everybody tomorrow night. Take care, folks.